Happy Saturday. Welcome back, everyone. This is Justin with Parity InfoSec, and I'm here to share with you the latest retired box from HackTheBox, Traceback. Traceback was definitely an easier box, but it was a great intro for folks that are trying to get into playing with this medium and trying to definitely look at different ways to get root. So as we go through here, it's a bit CTF-ish. So there's a couple places where you just kind of had to know what to look with, what kind of word list to use. Definitely took a lot longer to find than what you're going to see here. So it is going to be some basic CTF-ish enumeration. Roll into using SSH authorized keys injection, being able to just drop your public RSA key in to get your SSH into different users. There will be a portion where we talk about Lua and the luvit. There's a privesc that we're going to use. And we're going to pull that off of GTFObins. And like I said, I'll step right into 4 ways to get root. They're all going to use the same vulnerability, which is the update message of the day vulnerability that was present in the box. But I'm going to show 4 different ways in which you can flip that into a root shell. All right. And then in the end, after root, I'm going to talk a little bit about what was happening in this box that made it so difficult and the way that it overwrote your message of the day. And the best way to look at that is by using pspy. This box is pretty simple, so the tools were pretty minimal. Browser, I didn't put on their Nmap, but you're going to have just netcat. I use linpeas as my enumeration script for one portion of this, and pspy is going to be an after the fact just to see how it was working. I did use it during my initial run at the box, but really to finish this box off, you really just need a browser and netcat. All right. The other thing that we're going to bring into play here is the PwnBox. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the new Parrot OS that is being hosted on HackTheBox VMs. Everything's done through your browser. I did run into a few difficulties, some things I wasn't used to, and I'll talk a little bit about that as I get started, but I'm definitely excited to try that, play around with it, and I think it could be useful in several use cases, not all, but it does have a place in this environment. All right, let's get started. So as I go ahead and I launch the PwnBox, I want to share with you one of the oddities that I ran into. If you see the screen, I've got my machine is already up on Traceback, but when you go up into this right-hand corner to do connection settings, you can do PwnBox. It will not let you launch if you have an active machine. Now this is mostly because it doesn't know which the networks to launch it on, whether it's VIP or free, European, American, Australian, Singapore. It doesn't know where to put that box. So the first step you're going to do is go ahead and stop any machines that you may have running. And as you see that it terminated, I can come back over into this side of the window. And I can just go ahead and say where I want to go based on the ping speed. I was trying something out earlier where Germany was actually a much lower ping at the time that I was playing around, but it shot up exponentially while I was doing the box and slowed everything down. So using your best judgment, it really tends to be the case. Go for what's local. Earlier, I was using a Canada box because it's a little bit faster for me. I am in the United States, but the United States boxes were slowing down. Now I can see that India's fastest, but at some point that may come back to bite me. So I'm going to go and just try a United States box. And you go in here, you can pick which kind of labs you want to be in. I am a VIP member, so I'm just going to go to a US VIP lab. And it kind of bounces you around. And then from there, you can actually pick which server you want to be on. And I found this pretty handy because you can see where the load is at. If there's a bunch of users on one, if maybe one of the servers is sitting a little bit lower, you can kind of bounce around. Right now, it kind of looks like 8. 8's the small number here, 6. And it also depends if people are on your box. So sometimes you'll bump into the other users that are trying to do this box as well. So I'll go ahead and go with the US VIP 12. And once it finishes up, it's going to give me the option to start the PwnBox. So when I start it, it's going to start the instance. And what's really cool about the way that this box works is that it's going to generate all new keys and everything will get torn down and thrown out. Everything's randomized, so you don't have to worry about, like in this case, I'm not worried about sharing any of this information because it's all going to go away. This is that use case that's really handy. If you're out in public and you want to show somebody something, you can go ahead and do this. You can show passwords, you can copy and paste. Once you tear this session down, it's gone. And you don't have to worry about anybody doing damage to your system. And that, I think, was the big deal with why they launched this for a lot of users, is it gave you a little bit of freedom, as well as if you didn't have the software, I guess more the hardware. So if you're not running enough RAM, you're not running enough CPU, you can really get bogged down if you have a slow machine, but you can go ahead and use this web instance and get a little bit more power if you're weak. For me, I've got a pretty souped up machine, and at times I did find the VPN instance that I'm about to show you kind of slow. And that's just the luxury of having a nice box at home with a VPN connection and just going straight in. But when the workload, the users are down, it's quite fast. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, before I get started, I do want to start my instance, because as long as this has been started and you can see what server you're on, you can go back over into this part of the window and you can start whatever box you want to use. And it starts off here. You can use any tools, you can install any tools. Once you're done, the tools are lost. So this was a frustration for me when I was playing around with linpeas, pspy. I looked at a few other ways of doing, luckily I had gobuster, but I tried to do a few different tools and it just kind of got snagged there. And that's just the quirks of this. And you can install them, you just got to be ready to install them and get rid of them. Now with a VIP, you're only getting 24 hours for the month. So you got to be careful about how much time you want to use on this. It is not a permanent solution, but you can use it for a suitable chunk. And for boxes like this that are super easy and you don't need a lot of specialty tools, it's great. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm not used to the new Parrot interface, so it's kind of neat. It's got PowerShell. It's got the bash up here. You've got a text editor, you've got your Firefox, you've got your application. So this is a little bit more familiar to me. I am definitely a Kali person just because of my time with OSCP, PWK. Last week I actually had my first failure at AWAE, so the web exploit side of the house. And so I'm just more familiar with that interface. But I do find this little bottom interface, I'm not a Mac user, but I find this to be pleasing. as a Windows and a Linux person, I know that Mac people see this and they're just like, yeah, so. But it's interesting to me. It got a little weird because you can't alt-tab. If you alt-tab, you're actually alt-tabbing to a completely different window on your host machine. So when you get into some of these and you have multiple bash running, you do have to come down here and you got to kind of pick them out. I'll start a couple. When they start overlapping, it gets to be a challenge. You can come down here, it'll bring them up, bring them down. And that came into play when you start to bring a browser on top. Little pain, no big deal. And if you were to name them, you can kind of flip back and forth between them. All right, so I'm gonna just, now that I've shown that, I'm gonna put this over to the side. You can see that this is the session. This is just a random box that was created. This is my login right here, and it's so nice. This is the part about Parrot I do like. It's going to tell you what system you're on, and it's going to tell you your IP right there up front. You don't have to do an IP address. You don't have to do an ifconfig. It's right there. All right, so as normal, we'll start with an Nmap. I don't want to go through scripts and versions. This one is, like I said, very much configuration issues. So we'll just do a normal Nmap. The box is 10.10.10.181. And I like VV. It's going to come back really fast. That is pretty nice about this system. Super low latency. So there's port 80 for HTTP, and then there's going to be SSH on 22. So let's come over to our browser. Let's see what we got. So this site has been owned. I have left the back door for all the net, free internets. XH4H, that is the creator of the box. Fun little message. As usual, I like to look at the page source first. So come down here, they had a little blinking frames. That's kind of fun. Blinky, blinky. And then there was a code, a little comment left here. Some of the best web shells that you might need. So I left the back door, some of the best web shells that you might need. This is the first CTF-ish kind of thing on the box. And a lot of the comments that were coming in on Discord and on the forum said, Google it. I know it sounds super, super annoying, but I'm going to open this tab and show you exactly how much fun that was. If you search for that exact string, it shows up in this exact string. So this is the minute Gimor, and guess what? XH, 4H, it's one of the repositories. It's a pretty good giveaway that this is the individual. All right. We've got a selection of a bunch of different PHP shells in here. Which one to go with. You can sit there and you can go by hand. Personally, this is how I found it. I went through, just grabbed all these names, and I'm going to go back to my viewer. I almost did the Alt Tab again. All right, so we're going to come over here. I'm just going to do a nano shells, and I'm going to put them all in here. And as you can see, those 3 fields for every line came into 3 different lines. So the name, create, rename, whatever the action was, and then when it happened last. So I'm going to come out here. I'm going to cat the shells, but I like to grep V. There's better ways to do it, but I'm going to grep out. So exclude create, just to make sure I know it was a capital C. And we'll grep out the years. So at some point it did say years alone. This gets us a short list. There is one in here that you'll see that's extra, rename. But for the most part, rename, update, there's 2 extras in there. I don't really care. This is such a small list, it's not even gonna matter. So I'll take this and I'll drop it into scan.list. And then we'll go ahead and start with our gobuster. 10.10.181, and then we're going to use that word list. So scan.list, and because it is such a short list, it's 10 threads in and out, all done. And you do find that there is one of those shells popped up. Smevk. Well, Smevk happens to be the one I hate the most. So this one is a really annoying shell. So we're going to jump into it and jump out of it as fast as I can. Drop this in there. And this is our shell. So when you're looking at that Smevk, you come in here, you look at it in this display, you have the ability to change the username and the password. By default, it is admin. All right, super ugly, purple, blue. I do like the 90s throwback, but just not pleasing to my eyes. You can see here, this is the name of the box, Traceback. You've got the webadmin is the user group. Here we know that they run PHP, Perl. You got a netcat, and you got wget. There are some functions in this specific shell down here to read, make, upload file. I could not get it to upload a file despite saying writable and all that. Webadmin just did not have the best rights. But I found that the execute worked out pretty well. For execute, I'm going to go with a PHP because it's the first one on the list. There are a few issues that I ran into trying to get a bash reverse shell. So I found this one to be the best. We'll just come over and grab the PHP shell. We'll go back over. Now, we'll bring our windows back up because we need to know that we're at 14.20. And at the same time, we need to set up our reverse shell to catch. So I'm just going to do 8888 and let that one sit there. And then we will make this 10, 10, 14, 20 at 8888. Put that back on there. I like bash better. And then we'll go ahead and launch. You can see that it's hitting an action. So we'll go back over. There's my Alt Tab. Come on. That's that frustrating part. And you can see we've got the reverse shell right now. Webadmin popped our shell. This shell gets a little squirrely. So the first action that I want to kind of take once we get in here is to get a little bit more stabilized. And the best way to do that is through that injection of the SSH keys. So I'll start over here and I'll do SSH keygen, and it's going to make a whole new key. I'm going to save it in the default directory, and then you can put a passphrase on, you don't have to. I usually do. For this one I'm not going to because I'm not really worried about somebody coming back to me. This box will be gone once I'm done. All right, that has been done. So we'll go ahead and say cat SSH, and then we're going to say id.pub. This is going to be what you echo into the authorized key to get what you need. And I'll go ahead and type it into my box to have it ready. So echo, and copy from here to here. Make sure you stop there. That way you can put in a single tick and then cat it to, for this one we'll say authorized keys. It depends on what directory you're in, but I have a lot of faith. We're going to put this in the right spot. We'll be ready to go. So you can go ahead and copy all this and have it ready for this window. And for this, you can cat etc password. You don't really need to, but you can go in and you can see that webadmin has a home directory, home webadmin. So cd home webadmin. Sometimes when it's a www root, it's going to be var HTML, var www HTML. So we'll go ahead and go in here, lslia. You can see there's a note.txt, but I want to start by just solidifying and getting myself an SSH reachback. So we're going to go into SSH. We're going to take a look. They don't always have an authorized key. This one's already here. There might be somebody in there. We'll cat it just for fun. And there are several people in here. As a matter of fact, there's not several people. They're my keys from earlier. So we'll go ahead and echo that to authorized keys just to clean up some of my old work. All right, make sure that it's all nice and clean. So cat auth key. Man, does not let you clear screen on here. Nope. And that's just the nature of, I haven't set up this terminal environment, but I don't want to be in it long enough to really care. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this in here. I paste it in from here down, echo, here's my key, into authorized underscore keys. So it's sitting right in there. We can say that same cat auth, it's in there. We can come back over to this window. We're going to say SSH. To SSH in with a private key, you're just going to go ahead and say tac I. With this parrot version, you can actually hit autocomplete tab and it's going to know exactly what your private key is that you want to reference. Really cool. I like that feature. And then we got to make sure that we go to the right user. So webadmin at 10.10.10.181. It's going to ask if we want to use a fingerprint. We're in SSH. We can do this. We got autocomplete. We go up and down. So now that we got a fully functioning shell, I'll go ahead and close this one. And because of that, I don't really ever want to see this again. We'll just put it into the back. So with webadmin, we'll go back in here. We're going to take a look at the note that was left for us. Autocomplete, love it. All right, sysadmin. I have left a tool to practice Lua. I'm sure you know where to find it. Contact me if you have any questions. We don't know where to find it. You can see right here up on the screen there is a Luvit history, but it's blank. So that's really not going to do us any good. You can look at the bash history. I'll be honest, the bash history has a lot of my stuff in it right now, I'm sure. So we'll go ahead and just do a head. Take the beginning of it. And that's where you're going to see the important stuff. So somebody nanoed a file called privesc lua, and then they ran sudo admin sysadmin this command, and then on that privesc lua. You can see before that they ran a sudo l. So let's go ahead and run a sudo l. Sudo l tells us that we can run this as sysadmin with no password. Home sysadmin, love it. Okay, so if we can do it in here as well. So let's go ahead and search for GTFObins. You can type in here. It's a great living off the land kind of thing. If you can just type in here Lua, and you're going to see that there is a whole slew of options for the Lua shell. You can run Lua-TXT. We're not able to run Lua because it's running Luvit. But there is a chance that you can actually paste this into a file, run the file. So we'll copy this and try a few things out on the box. So knowing they did that, we can say nano my shell is angry. Not sure what happened, but my shell died. Go ahead and close that. We'll just do it over here. Almost feels like somebody reset my box on me. There is one other person on this box right now. So I'm going to go ahead and pause, wait for the stability on the box to come back up, and we will get back to cracking. So that hiccup is over. We've got our pings, we've got our shell back, so let's get back to what we're doing. All right, so I was going to nano, and we'll do the same thing, privesc.lua, and then we will paste that code in. That is not the code that we looked at. So we'll go back over here. Let's try this one. Get back over here, paste it in. So this was Lua E. It's going to try and run this command. And we'll see if we can get it to work. So we'll just do sudo tac-u sysadmin. And then we'll say this command right here. It's going to be sitting in the sysadmin directory, and then we'll say privesc, which is here. So we got a traceback. So there's an issue. This is the whole name of the box. You kind of run into this snag where it doesn't want to run the Lua command the way that it's been presented. It's expecting an equal sign in there. It doesn't really know how to handle it. So through a little bit of trial and error, you can actually come back into this file and just get rid of this. When it runs luvit, it's going to run it like a command from a normal shell. So if I run this, I got a shell. Who am I? I'm sysadmin. So I've jumped over from webadmin to sysadmin. That's one way to use this command. There's another way just about as simple. So we'll go ahead and exit back out of here. I'm going to cat this just to have the command ready. And then you'll run this with no argument, and it drops you into the shell. Welcome to luvit. Now this is where you can just take that same exact information, copy and paste it in. I'll make it a bash just because I like bash better. And I'm sysadmin traceback. So that's kind of user 1 to user 2. Pretty simple. A little bit of CTF. You had to kind of know what you were looking for, so it took a little bit of trial and error. At this point, same thing as webadmin. I want to get stability, so I want to get that SSH. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing that we did before. But what you'll see is, where am I at? It says that this is my home directory, but it's not. I'm actually sitting in home webadmin, not sysadmin. And that's just a quirk of I'm in webadmin, but I'm not webadmin. And that's just part of running a shell within a shell. So we'll go ahead and go to home sysadmin. This is the folder. Hey, there's user.txt. So let's see if we can cat that bad boy. Done. We got user. Woohoo! All right. With user out of the way, we got to do a little bit of extra enumeration to see how we're going to go from user 2 up to root. So let's try some of the same tactics from before. Sudo L. It wants my password. Well, tell you what, I don't know the password for this box. I got in by taking advantage of a loophole. So go ahead, exit out of here. And I want to make sure that I go back and do that stability that I talked about. So we're sitting in the right directory. We'll go to SSH. There is an authorized keys, and it is going to have some of that same information. So I'll do the same thing from before, just clear it out. All right. So I lost that information from before. So we'll just cat SSH ID rsa.pub. And we'll do the same thing we did before. Copy and paste from here to here. Bring it over. Echo. And we'll paste it into authorized users, or authorized keys. So if I exit out, this one you kind of get stuck in a continuous thing. You just Control-C out, exit out of this one. Come back in here. I use the same thing, I'll just change it from webadmin to sysadmin. And we're in. Slightly different though. This one comes in with a normal shell instead of a bash. Hey, that was easy. All right. So we got our user. We can't do sudo L. We've got our SSH, so let's start doing enumeration. My favorite way is to do linpeas. So one of the challenges of being in the PwnBox is not having the tools you're used to having, but it's not too hard to get. So you can go into that same browser and I can just say, give me linpeas. and pull it down from GitHub. And then I'll just copy the link to the raw, and I will wget. So we'll make sure we're in the box. I'll put it in downloads. All right, we got it. I had some snags. I still have not quite figured out how to use the HTTP server the way it's set up. I'm used to using a Python HTTP server every time you want to use it and shutting it down when you're done. This one has a port 80 web server already set up, but for ease, I'm going to go around and I'll just set up on port 8080. So sudo python, don't really need sudo in this case, but we'll do a python 3. I'm trying to get in the habit of using python 3, HTTP server, and then the port. So we're sharing from downloads. We can just come over here and go to my normal directory, dev.shm. Let's make sure we got it. We saw it earlier, but just want to make sure. So wget, and I can say 1010. Look right over that other screen, and it's right there, 1420. Make sure to specify 8080. And we will pull over linpeas.sh. Brought it over, and we'll just make sure to chmod that. And then we'll go ahead and run it. So, if you've never seen my videos before, linpeas is really nice, if nothing else, for the color and the entertainment. But there is a little checklist up here at the top with a legend. If it comes in with this red yellow, it is 99% escalation vector. If it's red, you want to look at it. The light cyan, the blue, it's kind of information that's good. The green stuff's pretty common, but you're really wanting to see that red with a yellow background, or red. That's what you want to kind of browse for. So we'll come down, we can see the version information. There's our environmental variables. ASLR is enabled. Okay, here are the root processes. And it's kind of funny because you can see this, and we'll go into it a little bit in the after root section, but it's running a shell with a sleep of 30, and then it'll copy var backups, update message of the day, and then it's going to put all that into etc update message of the day. So just keep in mind it's going to sleep, and then it's going to copy the backup on top of the existing file structure. All right. We'll keep going down. Sysadmin is running some pretty basic stuff. PAM. We've got the bash, the shell with the linpeas, psaux, which is part of this with the sort. Here's all the webadmin processes. You can see this is the FIFO I was running earlier. It didn't quite go away, so it's from a previous connection. It's just hanging out there, so we can definitely kill that if we wanted to. Go down through the files. We're looking for anything that's writable. This one, user ID of 0, doesn't really help us. It's only running one interface, so 10.10.10.181, and then it's got its loopback. So nothing weird, no Docker. It's running DNS 22. Here's all the connections that we've been making, and port 80. That is it. So this box is pretty clipped down to just the basics. Start to see some of the information of the console, the user groups. There are no special groups that help us get out. Webadmin does have a couple extra share and admin features, but it's not going to be what we need to get out. This is some pretty standard stuff. You know, password, new group, sudo, mount. Nothing really groundbreaking there that you got to worry about. This is where we start to get into the good stuff. Usually the files with passwords in them, any kind of history files, especially the bash file, like we showed at the beginning. The bash history file led us to the luvit that got us from user 1 to user 2. So it's always important to look at those files. And then these are writable files. So readable, writable by everyone. Some of these are some of the ones that we just made up. Node is readable, linpeas. But then you get down here in group sysadmin, so your group writable files includes those message of the days, and they are in that red with the yellow background. This is what you want to see. This is what you got to look at. So we can write into these files, and what happens is every time someone logs in, it's going to run those files, and it's going to run those files as root. So we'll start by showing that, and we'll show how we can take advantage of that. But don't forget, there is a sleep process, 30 seconds, right over, 30 seconds, right over. So there is a little bit of a race condition here. You got to keep up. I like to open multiple terminals. That way I can flip back and forth, no big deal. Have them all up and running, and I can just say up, enter, up, enter. All right. So this one kind of stalled out where it's trying to find strings, but I think we found what we really wanted to find, which is these update files. So we'll go ahead and take a look at those. If we can get it to stop. Over here, we don't need to share anything else, so I'll go ahead and stop this service, and I'll get started for that other window that I was talking about. It can be any user. In this case, I'll go ahead and just do webadmin. And have it ready. So if we go to Etsy, update, message of the day, these are the files that are in there. And these are the files you're going to see getting overwritten constantly. So the last one was at 2057. And it'll just keep going and going and going. You can see it is 2057:14. So it was just like within the last 14 seconds. Kind of crazy. And we'll cat this header file, just see what's in the header. So the header, like I said, it's going to run as root. It's going to run a shell. It's going to come down here, and that's where you get your release information. And then when you log into the box, we'll show it over here. When you log into the box, you get this welcome to XH4H land. Well, that's just a command. Echo this out. So we're going to take advantage of that and see what we can do. What if I echo ID into this header file? Remembering it's a race condition, I want to come right over here and hit this. You can see that it is running as root. So that's just confirmation of the concept that we're talking about. If I come back over here, arrow up twice, ID's still there. And it'll persist for, oh, there it's gone. So roughly 30 seconds. So you got to be quick with this one. Go ahead and clear this. I can echo the ID. So the easiest way to get root, or at least root flag in these instances, is to cat the root text. This will be enough to get you credit. But there you go. That is your root text. You really can't confirm that, but we know based on what's happening here, you've done cat into the header. When the header runs, it runs that. So you've got the root flag, but what does that really mean if you can't be root? I just hate that. So this is where I go into the additional steps. There's 3 other ways that you can get root, and then we'll talk about why that function for overriding works. So When I originally ran this box, I played around with the sudoers file, and that was mostly so that I could view it, but I found another quirk where you can obviously change the permissions on the file and you can write anything you want into that file. So we'll start there. Exit that, clean it up, and get it. Oh, try that again. Clean it up, get it ready. Don't start it. So what if we have it run chmod 777, just so I have all rights, read, write, execute, and then we'll do it on etc sudoers. I mainly just want to see the file. So we'll hit this, and then we'll force the header to run. And then on either window I can do it, but I find it easier to do on this window on the left. We will cat etc sudoers. And now we can see it. I didn't show you a full before, but obviously that's locked down. You can't look at it under normal circumstances. Here you can see root can do anything. Webadmin can do sysadmin. And that's about it. Well, we can come in and do a nano etc sudoers. And I can say the same thing, and I can say sysadmin all and before we put the last one, we want to say no password. Go ahead and save it. And because we're already sysadmin over here, sudo su, it won't allow us to do it because sudoers is world writable. Doesn't like that. So let's try and set it back. I don't want to do 744. Let's do a 700. Run it. You'll see if we try to look at it, permissions denied. It allows us to sudo su now that we've changed the permissions back, and we're root. ID, who am I? Root. Cool. So that is one additional way to get a root shell. Change that back. Well, easiest way to change it back is in here. We'll just delete that line. All right. When we exit, we do a sudo su. It's going to ask for our password. We don't have a password. Same loophole, same loop we went through before. So that is the first way to get a root shell, second way to get the root flag. Next way, which you've already seen a couple times now, is a pretty easy one of just putting your authorized key into the SSH authorized keys. So we've got this hanging out up here still. So we'll copy this. And this one gets a little quirky if you try to do it in just echoing, but you can go ahead and nano as well. So nano the header. Come down here. Paste this in, and you got to just make sure to say echo, put it at the end, and you're going to say root.txt authorized keys. Everything looks good. And you can actually leave this up if you really want to just change, run, change, run, change, run. This is one way to do it because you're always in the right window. You can see that when I tried to save, it said the file on disk has changed. It is modified since you opened. Do you want to continue saving? Yes. And that's where you always know that you're getting the freshest content. So go ahead and exit out of here and we'll rerun it. So at this point, it should have pulled the authorized key in. There's only one way to really check that, is there? So we will SSHI, put that in there, root at 10.10.10.181. It's asking us for our password. So I don't think we got it in time. I do this every time. You got to run it first, exit out, and then come back in as root. But this was a case of me not getting it in time, so we'll try this again. So file on disk has changed. Do you want to continue saving? This is that race condition. You got to run it once as webadmin or somebody else, exit out, and it should be fine. And your key is saved into the SSH authorized keys for root. So again, root at traceback, cat root.txt. There's your root.txt. That is the second way to get root. Third way to get the actual root flag. The final way is kind of everybody's favorite, just popping shells. So we'll go ahead and run an NC, a netcat. We'll do a reverse shell, and I'm going to do it through FIFO, which is kind of what you saw in that PSOGS earlier. I ran into a few issues. You can do it with the PHP. Sometimes you hit a little bit of snag. We'll try a couple, get into it. So I'll just run all fives. So we're going to catch it. And we will delete this line. So we're going to ask for it to echo, and then we're just going to run netcat. Now we know that we don't have the netcat tac E, so if you come over to this pentest monkey, if you don't have tac E, you can run the FIFO pipe. So we'll go ahead and copy that into here. And it'll make sure that it'll remove any pre-existing pipes that are labeled F. If you're running this over and over again, it's really good. As usual, I like that to be bash. And then we just gotta make sure that this matches our IP on this box and our port. So it's gonna echo this. And actually, we don't want to echo this because we're in the folder. If we had done it from the shell, we could echo it into this file. We're already in the file. We just have to hit save. And then we have to go back and have webadmin run the header. And you should see a shell pop right here. So I'll leave that over there. And we will exit out here. Clean it up. And I don't believe I saved this quick enough. So that's been saved. Exit. And when it runs this, you can see that we got our shell over on this side. So it's hanging here because the command we gave it was to do this. And we didn't put an ampersand to tell it to leave it as a background process. So it is the main process, and it's going to cause this login to hang. You can do whatever you want over here. Cat root.txt. Get that flag. When you exit out, this one hangs, so you have to actually Control-C out. it will then drop this shell back into the next process of the login and move forward until it gets a shell there. So those are the 4 ways to get the flag, 3 ways to get a shell. There's probably several other methods. Those are just the ones that I like to look at. If you're ever out doing these kind of boxes or you're out on a test, make sure that you have access to GTFObins in case you need to find PrivEsc, and then always make sure you have those other ways down pat where you can put your information into sudoers, catch your key into auth keys, and then if you can run any kind of shell command, you can always do a reverse shell. But it's not always the easiest. The last part I wanted to cover was talking about the pspy. So pspy allows you to view the processes as they're running. In the case of this box, it did show up, but if you were to do a ps aux, sometimes you'll catch it, sometimes you won't. And I believe this is that one instance where you don't see the sleep. So right now you can't see that it's actually doing a sleep and then overwriting the files. There's no way to see it. So the only real way to see that is by using pspy. Allows you to monitor those processes, and it does it in such a real time with Python that you don't have an issue with not being the right privilege and not running it the second that it runs. It's always going to run all of them. I like the 64-bit, and the big static allows you to run it on any box that you can get this onto. Sometimes you run into issues where you don't have all the modules, you don't have all the information to build the file and run it. So just run the big static versions. Same thing as before. I'll copy this location. I'm going to just wget into our downloads directory and host it out again. If I can get that. There we go. So we're still in this, so we'll just do it right here. Wget. It's not letting me paste. And there we go. So that's, for me, that's a super annoyance because I have multiple screens and I actually have a screen that goes down below this monitor. So anything that runs over, I can't get to that. If you don't have that problem, you'll be fine. So we pulled this down. We've now got pspy in the box. Not how far up this was. It wasn't on this, so we'll go ahead and just do a Python 3 http.server 8080. We'll come over to this box, put ourselves back in dev.shm. So for the pspy, you really need to make sure that you're sitting in an SSH or a solid terminal, because to get out of pspy, you have to control C. And if you're sitting in a weak terminal, it's just going to cut that terminal off completely. You have to go back in and re-execute whatever you did to get that if you don't have any kind of persistence or a solid shell. So we'll clear this up and just do a wget. Let me get this out of the background as well. So wget 10.10.14.20, specify port 8080, pspy 64. As always, chmod that, and we will run it. So give it a second to boot up. It's going to run. You can see the processes that were already hanging out in the system. Nothing new. This is what was running. And then as things start to happen, they'll populate in the bottom. And right there, you get that pop right there from user ID of 0. So that is your root. It's doing a sleep, copy, backups, message of the day to Etsy, update message of the day. And it's just going to kind of keep repeating that. You'll see it come up every 30 seconds or so. Super annoying. If you are not sure that this is going on, this box was very annoying, very difficult. because you're constantly fighting that churn of not being able to get ahead of the curve, not being able to execute your attack before it happens. If you don't have multiple windows open where you generate the header file and then launch a new login, it's not going to happen. And if you're doing it in the same window, you've got to exit out. If you don't hit that race condition right, you've got to go through the whole process of setting up nano or echoing into the header. So it's nice to have two windows up and you can see this happening. You can stay ahead of the curve. But as you can see from pspy, that is a function of the system and you just got to work around that. So that is Traceback. Traceback was a fairly easy box, but it has the opportunity to do a lot more in terms of looking at how to use some of these tools, finding different ways to execute that attack with the services on the box and the message of the day opportunity. I really appreciate you guys watching this. I want to thank XH4H. This was an easy box, but that CTF element kind of made it just annoying enough to be fun. I hope you liked the introduction to PwnBox. That was my first go at it tonight, so I found it to be annoying in some spots, useful in others. I'm sure I'm going to use it, but it's not going to be my primary machine, not my primary method of doing these. You'll see it pop up in the future from time to time. This week I also did get into DANTE, the new ProLabs from HackTheBox. That one's been a lot of fun. You'll hear a little bit more about that over the next couple weeks. I'm going to try and keep that to a 1 month subscription. It is £70 to start, £20 per month. If you lapse for a month, you've got to do a whole new £70 startup fee. So you really want to keep it either going or knock that out fast. They've had other ones, Rasta Labs, and Cybernetics is a new one. But Dante is a fun one because it's set for that lower level junior pen tester. I wanted to take a look at it. It's very similar to a small OSCP so far. There's only about 16 machines on there, but you got to kind of feel around to get there. I've had it for about a day now, and I've got 25% of the flags, but those are the easy flags. So we'll see where it goes from there. Hope you guys keep watching. I'll try and give you some more information as things go along. If nothing else, hope to see you guys next week.